Yeah, we're back to the Career Build Series, episode 194, and so we're working on the Ekranoplan again here. So trying to come up with some notions, did a little bit of testing off screen just to try to figure out where I could go with this. So starting to kind of thinking of working on the systems, and so I need to see where I'm at with that, and hopefully try to get moving on getting this working. So need to start working on the ground effect system. So ground effect is essentially comes into effect about half the wing lengths, half the wingspan. So the wingspan of this is about 56 feet. So we're talking, let's say, about 30 feet. So as long as we're within 30 feet of the water, we should be in ground effect. What I'm going to do is right now I'm using these fins to simulate ground effects. So they are currently pushing up, causing me to, get a ballooning effect. So what I want to do is, ooh, what the hell am I doing here? So I need to get this out of the water again here. I was playing with the fins. I think they're just too sensitive here. So one of the things I need to get out of the water right now too is I also need to use my prop pitch to counteract the center of thrust being above the center of gravity. So we're going to start to click on this, and we'll see where my braking is, where I essentially break away. All right, so about 0.28 we'll say. So 0.28 is once I hit 0.28, the propeller pitch is counteracting the center of thrust. So my center of thrust is up there at the propellers, right behind the propellers. My center of gravity is down here by the wing. And so my center of thrust being above the center of gravity caused my nose to pitch down. And so I'm using propeller pitch, the actual pitch node, to counteract that. So the next thing I'm going to do, so we know that, so 0.28. So we're going to use 0.28 in there. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to start to play with this ground effect feature. And so when we're inside of the ground effect, I'm going to use those fins to give me more lift. You can see as I'm gently tapping them, the sensitivity is too high, but as I gently tap them, you see it's lowering me down. It's taking away some of my lift. And so what I want to figure out is when I'm in ground effect, I want those fins to help me. When I get out of ground effect, I want them to be negative, or not even negative, but just neutral. And so I get the most lift when I'm inside a ground effect. I might even go negative when I get above a certain height, so that we kind of have to stay in ground effect, simulating ground effect. So it'll be like this, essentially. So that's about the height we want. Just barely skimming the water. That's kind of where we want to be. So let's kind of take a picture here. So that's about where we want to be there for height. And so this is going to be how this operates. I'm going to take the control surfaces off of the wings, and I'm going to do them all with the tail and canards. And so this will be nice and low. I'm going to probably give myself a little bit extra, variance than the real ground effect. Now, some of these could go up to I think one of them went up to 9,600 feet. They could fly like airplanes, but they had to get up to speed first. So I want this to be able to fly like an airplane, but I want it to act pretty poorly. And so the way I'm going to do that is, essentially, if we look at my fins are still positive. Essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cause them to go negative. And so when I push down, it's going to give me essentially negative lift. So as I get above a certain altitude, it's actually giving me negative lift. It's going to make it hard to fly. So like right now, you see how the fins are pushing down? That's causing me to have to pitch up quite a bit, which is going to make me so that I can fly like a plane, but it's going to be ugly. And it's going to be hard to fly. It's going to, like right now, I don't have enough lift. I'm struggling to maintain enough lift. Well, we don't have a very conducive wing for actual flying. We have a ground effect wing. So what you'll need to do is then when we get close to the water, those fins will counteract it. So I'm going to grab one of my microcontrollers from the build that I was just working on. Just did a little bit of this off screen. I was actually recording it, but it ended up turning into a pain that and it wasn't going to be good to watch. So let's go ahead and grab this panel. And so I did some things that kind of screwed it up. I added too much drag, so I just kind of went back to what I had that was working. And This way I can make this work a little bit better. Added some things that just added too much drag. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I also want to get rid of these control surfaces here. That's fine. I'll leave that the way it was. Actually, no, I'll do this. Let's actually delete this here. And so I'm going to set these in, and then can't do it exactly like I just did because of the be pulling from my tank there. So let's just put 2 blocks in here for now. All right, so that's in. So what I'm going to do is I deleted out my wing control surface because you don't want those in the water. And then what I did was just made a microcontroller that allows me to control all of my inputs from this box. And so now we can do it all with these 4 instead of having that one there. So let's go for a test flight. I'm going to do this methodically let's do this too. Let's put a dial. And so I kind of need to check my parameters of what's going to allow me to fly. I need to write them down. So like, so this is going to be my trim here, what I'm using for my fins. And so I just want to read that out. This here is up down is what's doing those little fins. Right now it's at 25%. I want it at like 5%. Let's try 5%. I want it very precise so that I can precisely control it. This I want precise as well, so let's go just down to 10%. That's my prop pitch, my pitch of my propellers, which is counteracting my center of thrust issue. I think that's good. So let's go ahead and spawn. Let's do a flight test again. I'm going to have to do a lot of flight tests. This is reasonably complex, and so I need to make sure that I don't screw it up, because I did screw it up there for a little bit in my testing. So this was 0.28. 0.28 allowed me to get out of the water, so it's counteracting that pitch down tendency of the thrust. Let's go to 50% on this. I think I needed 100%, but let's try 50. The less fin influence I have here, the less drag. So 50, okay. All right, let's go to, let's go to 10%. Let's try 15%. Let's start throttling up, see if I can't get out of the water. And I'm just trying to unstick myself. So right now, I do not have enough fin to unstick. So I'm going to tap it up one. And as soon as I unstick from the water and I'm able to get airborne, that's going to be our value. So I'm just very gently tapping the fins up, getting them higher and higher until it eventually pops out of the water. See where we're at here. I'll do it in the cockpit so I can read it. Go to 100. All right, so we're still not unsticking. That's fine. Let's go back down to 50. All right, and let's see if I can do it with propeller. So, I actually might need to go the other way. I can't recall which direction it was. Not that direction. Let's go the other direction. I might have just put this in the wrong way. I couldn't recall which direction this needed to go. All right, what's our speed? Might not have enough speed. Let's try 10%. I have to also know my prop pitch to get us the high enough speed to get out of the water. Let's go 28 on this. Trying to give it the best chance to get out of the water. I just got this out of the water. Okay, there we go. All right, I'm out. So it's definitely in the negative. All right, so the lower I can get this, the better. So these fins high is good. That's so 0.18 I was able to get out of the water. Let's land and try this again. I'm starting to slow us down here. I need to reduce the, let's just do this. Let's recall it because I want to reduce my pitch sensitivity is way too high. So I want to change the pitch sensitivity here. Pitch sensitivity is WS. That is, go down to like 3%. All right, let's do another takeoff. So a lot of testing here. I want to be able to put in as little prop pitch as possible. So we're going to need 100% fin. So this is simulating the planing effect of as the vehicle moves faster in the water, it wants to go towards the top and skim on the water. This needs to be negative. We get to 0.18, so let's go to 0.2. Let's go ahead and start up the engine. Let's go to 10% on this. I think 10% has been kind of a sweet spot for us. Now let's try to get out of the water here. So I'm going to get up to speed before I do my elevators. That's going to also let me get the high speed. Let's check our speed. So we're right around 30 meters per second, 31. Let's try to pitch out. Very slow. Nice. Okay, so that works. Our pitch is now way too slow. All right, that's fine. We can fix that. So that's good. So point... Oh, gee, I hate it when it does teleports me instead of lets me pull the vehicle back. All right, let's check this now. So let's double the... we're at 25%. We're now at 3%. Let's go to 10%. Let's check. Let's change one more sensitivity. This my propeller pitch is just can't get a sensitive propeller pitch because it's at 100. Let's go down to 10% on that. All right, so let's go and test this again. I would like to get my fins lower here, so let's go to 25% fin. Let's go to 0.2, negative 0.2. Let's go ahead and start up. I'm going to wait to set my propeller till this engine starts. Just takes longer for the engine to start. Now let's set that to 0.1, which is 10%. Start going now. So a big part of it is keeping the drag down enough that we get up to an adequate speed to take off. All right, so I don't have enough fin to keep me from swamping. All right, I'm going to try not to do... I'm going to see how little fin I can do to not swamp. So the way I'll control this is how I do it with the Cormorant, which does it via water sensor. So when it leaves the water, which, you know, what I'll do is I'll put the water sensor in the belly. So once the belly is up out of the water, it will reduce this down to where it will sink back in the water. See, like right there. So let's say to point, oh, I don't know. We need a lot of fin to get us back out of the water. Let's go to, I don't know, let's go to 0.5. Just trying to see where I can get us here. And our speed's good. We're above 30 meters per second, so we should be able to take off. Let's take off. I'll do it in first person. All right, we're out of the water. I need just a PID to help me. I'll put a gyro in there just for now. I'll probably do a custom gyro. All right, so we're going to skim along the top of the water, and we're in ground effect. So when we're in ground effect, we're going to have a positive value on our fins. As I get out of ground effect, we're going to start to have a decreasing effect where this goes to effectively 0. Now, as I lose that ground effect, I have to do what I do in real life. In real life, what I do is as I lose that ground effect, I need to pitch my nose up more. And what I'm doing is I'm changing the angle of attack of my wing so the wing is at a higher relative angle to the wind, giving me more lift. And now as I get back down into ground effect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile on some fin. And so what that's going to do is by adding fin as I get back into ground effect, it's going to essentially give me a cushion of lift. And so this is going to also help me stay, stay it's going to help reduce my drag, which my pitch angle will do. All right. So let's set up the logic for that. I think that's going to be an important step, getting that logic in there. All right, so let's start working on that logic here. So let's find the center line. And so we're going to do a bunch of ands. And part of this is this should be able to skim the land as well. So we need a couple things. We need an altimeter. All right. Let me try to just do it with an altimeter and a distance sensor. All right. So we have an altimeter and a distance sensor. Let's get a blank microcontroller and let's start working on this to make this work for us here. So let's stick it here. Let's see. Ground effect. All right, so ground effect again is about 50% of the wingspan. So that's going to be, we have a 56-foot wingspan. So let's talk about a 30 feet. So when we're within 30 feet of the surface, whether it be the ocean or whether it be the land, we want to have ground effect, essentially. So let's go ahead and try to think. So what I could do is have this kind of, so let me see if I can do it with a formula. So let's go ahead and take in, we want to take in a number from the altimeter. Okay, we want to take in a number from the distance sensor. All right. And then we want to have a number go out to our ground effect fins. Okay. So let's go ahead in here. And so let's start by setting this up. So essentially what I want to do is I should be able to set up a formula. So the altimeter, I'm trying to see. So let's see. Let's see if I can't do it with a simple function here. So essentially what I want to do is, so when we start at 0, I want 100%. So that would be x plus 1. All right. Let me see how I want to do this. So I want to start at 1. So let's do this. All right, so x plus, so altimeter plus what? Probably negative x plus 1. Let's try that. So negative x plus 1. So at 0, right, so 0 plus 1, that would give us full deflection. When I go up to 1 meter, essentially, right, that would be negative 1 plus 1 now. So let's see. We don't want that. So we need to have a percentage of this. So that's fine. So let's see. Negative x divided by, so let's see, 30 feet, I want essentially 0. So let's see, 0, negative x divided by 30 plus 1. So 0 divided by 30 is 0 plus 1 gives me full deflection. Let's say we have 1 meter. So let's do a real quick calc. I'm doing feet, which isn't a good idea. Let's do 10 because that would be 10 meters. So I'm mixing my things. So let's see. So we would have, let's see, say we had, let's say we're at 1 meter. So we're at 1 meter. So negative 1 divided by 30 would give us negative 0.033 plus 1 would give me 0.96. So that's starting to reduce. So let's say we're at 10 meters now, so 30 feet. So let's say negative 10, we're at it, divided by 10 is negative 1, plus 1 is 0, so that works. Now let's say we're at, 10,000 feet, okay? So negative 10, or let's say, what would that be? Let's say 1,000 meters. Let's say we're at let's say we're 1,000 meters above the ground. So negative 1,000 divided by 10 is negative 100, plus 1 equals negative 99. That means that our fins will be at full deflection of negative 1. That works perfectly. So this formula should work. Okay, good. So let's see. Now, how to make this work with this? See, the problem is the altimeter will read properly until we go over the land. Once we go over the land, we run into an issue where, you know, I'll be on a mountain at 3,000 feet. Well, technically, I'm still right over the ground. I still should be in ground effect, even though I'm at 10,000 feet. Now, we're not really accounting for... I'm actually, that might not bother me. I might not even screw with this because as you gain altitude, you lower air density. This wing is not designed to go at high air densities. So let's just try this. Let's go test this. This will automate our fins, which will be good. So let's update that. So let's see if I can just do it with this. I might just do it with that. Altimeter. Okay. So this formula is going to do all this work for us. And this should work well. So this is essentially just simulating ground effect. As we're close to the ground. Now the only issue I have is if the altimeter goes below sea level. So let's do a quick test with that, or quick math with that. So let's say we're at, so two negatives make a positive, right? So we have, let's say we're 5 meters underwater. So we'd have, so it'd be -5, -5, that's a 5. We should try to remember what my formula was. Divided by 30 is 0.16 plus 1. Yeah, that would give us full deflection. Perfect. So that still works well. So that should have no problem working for us. These fins are all going to get hidden. I hope I don't need this many in the nose. I probably do. Okay, let's just add in a gyro for now. I have a gyro on one of my airplanes that probably work a little bit better, but my pitch here is a little bit wonky here. All right, I'm not going to screw with this right now. I'll do it later. All right, let's try this. So this has the automated fin system in there. All right, so those fins are now automated. That should help us take off some workload. This should go to -0.2, which is going to counteract our center of thrust issue. So the question some might have is, how would you counteract that center of thrust issue IRL? So now currently our propeller is sitting flat, right? So because the propeller is sitting flat, it's going to push our nose down because the center of thrust is above the center of gravity. What you would do is you would angle the propellers. Now you would angle the propellers by turning the whole nacelle. So I'm not going to do that on this. I'm just going to use the pitch, but that's how you would do it IRL. Is that stuff you notice sometimes, especially like jet nacelles. Sometimes they point down. That's more that when you're flying at cruising altitude, you want them facing straight ahead, not down, so they angle them a little bit. All right, let's set this to 10. This is set to counteract that. Let's go to 10% on that. All right, so now this should auto set. So I should have put that in to read, but let's go ahead and start advancing our throttle. So the fins should automatically be 100%. They are. All right, let's check our speed. we're at speed to get out. And we're out. Whoa, 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 whoa. Pitch is too sensitive again. I'm porpoising because of that. All right, so now these should automatically be working. So now let's go up to a high altitude. You'll notice these should tip down. And so it's actually, you see, I'm fighting it. See how high my angle of attack is here? That's how high of an angle of attack I need to counteract all that down pitch. So this is causing me to stay in ground effect, essentially. I can fly at altitude, but I have to have a very high angle of attack. Now, I was talking in one of my videos that stalling is not speed. Stall is angle of attack relative to relative wind. And so what I mean by that is, let's do this real quick. We'll do a little ground school here. Let's go ahead and take a pick. Let's go ahead and mute the master. Let's go into paint. Do a little bit of ground school here. Take me back to my flight instructing days. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll look at paint here. And so the way that you need to consider stall is not a speed. People say stalling speed, but you know that's an oversimplification. Let's put it that way. Stall is an angle of attack issue, and so let's go up to like 20. All right, so we need to talk about. So we have the wing chord, the center of a wing here, right? And so let's shoot a straight line. So that's our relative direction. That's the direction we're going, okay? We are going this way, okay? Now, if we're going this way, our relative wind, the way the wind is relative to us, is this way. Now, why do we call it relative wind? Now, let's say we actually have a tailwind, right? Let's say the wind is blowing this way at 10 knots, all right? If the wind is blowing this way at 10 knots, but we are going, say, 120 knots, right? We take, since it's tailwind, we subtract the tailwind, so our relative, we're going to actually, we add the tailwind for our ground speed, we subtract it to find out what our relative wind is. So we're going 120 knots this way, but 10 knots of that is tailwind, so our relative velocity is 110. Okay, so even though the wind is blowing from our back, we still have 110 knots of wind blowing at our nose. So this is our relative wind is going opposite our relative velocity direction, our velocity vector. So now let's talk about the angle of attack of our wing here. So the angle of our attack, as you can see, it lines up with the chord line of our wing and the angle that is. So this here is our angle of attack. Now, how do we do this IRL? We use angle of attack gauges. Now, you can actually do this in game. I use Sky's PFDs a lot, and so they use a wind sensor. And you'll notice that if we were going like this, right, the wind sensor wouldn't be facing like this. The wind sensor would be facing the relative wind. So the wind sensor would be like this. All right, and so that's giving us our angle of attack. So we actually have AOA gauges that will tell us what our angle of attack is. Now, the reason you want an AOA gauge, an angle of attack gauge, is to know where you're going to stall. Now, in the say the Embraer, let me see if I can bring up an AOA representation on the Embraer. Try to bring up the PFD. Okay, so let's see if I have stall bars. And so this information is critical to understanding when you're going to stall. I'm trying to find if I can get a picture of stall bars. So essentially, I don't have really good pictures here. This is reasonable. Trying to see if there's one with stall bars on it. Like none of them have stall bars on them. So essentially, let me try to bring it up here. All right, so this is the PFD here. So you have, what you'll get is you get these two bars. And what it's doing is it's reading the angle of attack, and what it's telling you is it's saying, hey, right here is your stall. If you go above this angle of attack, you're going to stall. So, for example, when we do stall recovery in the simulator, we would recognize the stall, so you can feel it in the simulator. You can feel it in real life. Actually, I just found that's not AOA. That is Flight Director. But anyway, so you're going to get stall bars, and so the stall bars would come up, say, up here. And you know that let's say it was at 20 degrees. You know that if you pulled up to 20 degrees, you would be just on the edge of stall, but if you went above that, you would stall. And so our recovery procedure would be as soon as we feel the stall, we would go full throttle while dipping the nose down to break the stall. Then we would pitch up all the way up to the stall bars, giving us the greatest angle of attack before we'd stall again. If you pulled up above that, you'd go into what's called a secondary stall. You'd stall again, and you'd have to recover. Generally, if you stalled again, they'd give you another chance to do it right. If you got it wrong again, you'd fail the sim ride. So anyway, so quickly we'll finish this up. But so stall is angle of attack. So let's say that the critical angle of attack for this aircraft, let's say, I don't know, we'll make up some numbers. Let's say this is 10 let's say it's 10 degrees. So let's say this right here is 10 degrees. Let's say that our stall is going to be at 15 degrees. All right, so this is 15 degrees. That means we could go another 5 degrees before we'd stall the wing out. All right, so that's important to know is stall is not speed, stall is angle of attack. You can get in what's called an accelerated stall. You'll see if you've ever watched a video of a jet at an air show crash, they generally crash because of an accelerated stall. They're going very fast, but what they'll do is they'll come screaming down like this, right? They're going, let's say, 400 knots. Let's say this is the deck, right? That's the ground. They come down, and then they wait too long, and they try to pull it up really hard. Well, guess what? They've gone past this 15 degrees or whatever their critical angle attack is, stall. Well, guess what? Once you stall, they stall right here. They have no more lift, and so even though they're still facing straight, at 15 degrees, they'll pancake right into the ground. And so the proper way to come out is you come down the same trajectory, but then you start to gently pull out. And because you're more gently pulling out, you never cross this 15 degrees. So let's say this here is 20 degrees, and this is 15 degrees. You'd have to do a smooth pull-up, or else you would accelerate stall. You can't just yank it to the ceiling and expect to get out of there. You're done. Now, there are some cases, certain jets, that if you have enough thrust, right, thrust can overcome everything. If you had, a jet with greater than 1-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio, so you essentially can go vertical, you can go past the critical angle of attack, but it's your engine thrust that's saving you, not your wing. All right, so just quick and dirty little stall conversation there, just to kind of do that. But so you can see is as we are up here, right, I have to keep a higher angle of attack to maintain my altitude. Now, we're going to get to a critical point where I can't do that anymore, where I have to essentially get to a stall. So like I'm trying to stall this here. I have enough thrust that I'm not stalling, but so essentially what you would do is, you have a critical angle of attack. So sometimes a little bit more flight school stuff. So another thing is, let's say you have a very heavy jet going from New York to Tokyo, right? A very long flight, they hold a lot of fuel. Well, what they'll do is they'll do what's called a step climb. And so let's say you have a ton of fuel, you're very heavy, right? So what they'll do is they'll climb out. I think I actually did stall it there. See how much altitude I lost? That's because I did stall the plane. So I did stall it. So I just don't have the sound on, so it's hard for me to tell. But you can see how high my angle of attack is. Well, that's because I'm simulating. These wings are not good for flying around high in the air. These wings are good for ground effect. And so we'll finish that thought on, the long flight across the ocean is. So as the flight from New York to Tokyo goes off, they have a ton of fuel. Well, with that heavy fuel, they need a higher angle of attack to climb. Well, once they reach their critical angle of attack, they're going to stall. So what they'll do is they'll go up to, say, 25,000 feet. They'll burn off, say, 10% of their fuel. Now they'll be light enough they can climb up to 30,000 feet. Burn off another 10% of their fuel. Now they're light enough they can go all the way up to, say, 40,000 feet, you know. So what this is going to allow us to do is as I get close to the water here, it's going to cause those fins to give me more lift simulating the ground effect. Now the reason I'm porpoising here, going up and down, is my pitch trim is just my pitch sensitivity is just way too high. I need to put a gyro on those essentially. But this is going to give me the ability to, as you can see, right now, look at my angle of attack, right? I'm still going the same speed. My angle of attack is much lower. And so when people talk about stall as a speed, this is why. So if you see, I'm going about the same speed I was at altitude, but my angle of attack, you look at this, I'm almost flat. All right, so because I'm flat, let's pause it. Let's go like this. So as you can see, I'm close to the water, right? I have more lift because of ground effect. You know, I'm kind of bobbing around, but you see how low my angle of attack is. So that's how we want to make this system work. So probably a little bit more in depth, but some people might find that interesting. So that's when people talk about a stall speed is, for example, stall quote-unquote speed changes with altitude because your angle of attack needs to go up and up and up. As the air density goes down, your wing is producing less lift. You need greater angle of attack in order to get more lift. Well, eventually you're getting closer and closer and closer to your critical angle of attack, and then you're going to stall. So let's do this here. Let's change this. I'm going to put this through a gyro. It's not my favorite, but let's do... I just want to make sure this is going to work right. So pitch input, number input rather. Gyro, pitch. I might just keep a gyro in this. Oh my God. Trying to combine words. All right, so we're just going to do this for that. I'll make a custom gyro at some point. I just have yet to, I'm just not going to do it right this second. All right, so what I'm going to do is 1 is my roll. So this is going to take this and this. And then my pitch is going to go there and there. That's good. Okay, what's this? 2 is what? 2 is pitch. All right, I screwed that up, didn't I? 1 is gyro roll. Okay, 1's roll. Okay. So that's that. Okay. Pitch is going to be all of these here, there, 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 and there. All right, so that now takes care of that. Let's just put a gyro in there. I want this to behave itself. Currently, I need a little bit of gyro to make to smooth this out. I want to see how this is behaving. I can't tell if my system is going to work if I'm bobbing all over the place because my pitch is overly sensitive. So I'm just going to bring those down to 10% for now. And we'll plug them in off the seat. So we'll go AD, where are we at here? Roll. WS, where are you at, WS? WS is going to be pitch. We'll go stabilize pitch to gyro pitch and stabilize roll to, where are we at here? Stabilize roll. Okay, let's fly this now, see if this works. So starting to get my numbers figured out here of where I want to be. So make that negative 0.2. So I might just leave this at negative 0.2. So it adds whatever propeller I do. It automatically subtracts negative 0.2. That will keep it there. I'll do that later. Let's go ahead and turn the sounds back on. Now let's go to 10%. Propeller pitch, that seems to be our best speed for takeoff. Easy way to find that out is you just see if does adding pitch give me more speed or does adding pitch give me less speed. Pretty simple. All right, so we're good. We're going. Let me pitch out of this. Let me check my speed first. So we have rotation speed. I'm going to say 30 meters per second is our rotation speed. All right, the gyro might be too low a sensitivity for me to get out of the water. I can check that. Okay, yep. So the gyro is robbing me of the ability to get out of the water. When I put a custom gyro in, that won't be a problem. So what we'll do is we'll go to pitch. We'll change it to 20%. I just need enough pitch authority that I can get out of the water. I just wanted some smoothing effect. I'll do PIDs to smooth it later. Up to 10% on propeller. Yeah, so that's all you do. You find out your best propeller pitches. You kind of, you know, increase it. Do I go faster? Do I go slower? Okay, this is my best speed pitch. Best efficiency is pretty much always going to be 100% propeller pitch. There we go. Okay, so I could probably maybe even go a hair down, but actually I have good controllability. That's not bad. So I'm going to unstick from the water, and then I'm going to come down. You know, eventually when I set this up, I should be able to, I should have set up the gyro. This probably actually hold me pretty well, but eventually I'll have an altitude hold on here that will keep me skimming the water. You know, and so we're nice and low. You notice how we're a little bit, okay, so this is another thing. So we were talking about angle of attack, right? Notice how my deck angle is actually pushing me down. That's caused by ground effect, and that's actually realistically what happens is, I'm going to mute this again so you don't have to hear it. But so when I'd come in to land, as I get close to the runway, about half of my wingspan. So let me see what the I forget what the wingspan on the 145 was. It's 100-something feet. Let me see what it is. Maybe 90-something feet. I can't recall. Let me see if they have a quick one. Wingspan is really 65 feet. That sounds a little bit narrow, but that's probably right. So the wingspan of the Embraer was 65 feet. So we're talking 32.5 feet. So we start to get into ground effect, and it's only really effective within 20%, so about 12 feet off the ground. So just as we were about to touch down, it gave us a ton of extra lift. All right, so it gave us a ton of extra lift. Well, where's it giving us the lift? In the wings, right? So the lift is coming right here, and it's picking the back up. We're also, we might get a little bit of extra lift off of the tail, but the tail's probably high enough. It's not getting much ground effect. But so we get this extra lift in the back, so we actually have to push the nose down a little bit. And so you'd actually get in a nose low attitude. You'd kind of almost be like this, where you're trying to get the nose down a little bit. So that's actually, this is realistic. So as we're skimming the water, we don't want to be flat. We actually kind of want to be like this. We're getting a bunch of extra lift off the wings. And so that's actually not a bad thing. So that's actually how it's going to be, is we're going to be flying like this, a little bit nose down. So I have hands off the controls. I haven't touched the controls. Let's put a hair trim in. I'm going to try to trim it. So you can see I'm hands off again. Let me just trim just a hair. I'm hands off. So this is what it's going to look like here, skimming the water. Let's do a little test here. Give ourselves a reasonable amount of wind. I want a little bit of altitude on these waves. So that's, you know, that's probably a little bit high on ground effect, but, you know, I'm not having a problem. Now, this is called weather vaning. Again, see, we're doing ground school stuff. This is weather vaning. The plane will actually turn into the wind like it is. See the wind? We can tell what direction it's coming from by the waves. The plane will go in, and it will actually go diagonal like this. And so this used to scare the hell out of people when we land in Boston, because a lot of you come in over Boston Harbor, and you go to land on, I forget what runway number, it doesn't matter, but there are a couple that you'd have to come in over the water on. And so us in the cockpit, right, we can see, you know, like you see, so we'd actually be looking at the runway like this because we'd be coming in diagonally. And everybody on this side can probably see the city and the land. Everybody on this side, all they see is water. And so when we come into land, what you want to do is, let's say the runway is right here. At the last second, you kick the rudder, you straighten out the nose, and you put down the left wing. So now you go straight and you land. And so you essentially de-weather vane. And so the people on this side, all they saw was water, and then they heard us pulling the engines back and flaring to touch down, and they never saw the runway until we touched. So to them, it looked like we were landing in the water, and usually scare the hell out of people. But you know, if we had a big crosswind. But that's actually weather vaning. That's realistic. That's what the plane would do. Plane needs to give some of its essentially thrust towards the wind, or it's going to drift to the left, and it automatically weather vanes. You don't have to set a weather vane; you just leave it, and you know, at the last second you kick the rudder to straighten it out, so you don't side load the landing gear. But as you can see, working really well as an Ekranoplan. Let's go ahead and let's climb. And you'll notice, okay, so see right there, look at how high my angle of attack is. That's how high of an angle of attack I need to do, because the system is automatically stealing lift away from us as we get out of ground. I'm actually stalled right now. I'm stalling. Not really stalling, maybe a little bit of a stall. So you see, I'm starting to get back in a ground effect. Well, watch what happens when I tag back in a ground effect. Watch my angle of attack. Angle of attack is all that matters here. Watch my angle of attack. Getting lower and lower and lower. And we're back in a ground effect. So this is perfect. So now let's do it again. There, I lose a ton of lift. I'm barely maintaining altitude. Look at how high my angle of attack is. I'm climbing now. I need a massive amount of angle of attack to climb. So this will be able to fly like a plane. That's realistic. That's fine. The difference is that this, now we're actually sinking. I can't maintain altitude. Right about there. That's my angle of attack. So this is my critical angle of attack here. So let's trim that in. And we have a bunch of wind helping us. All that wind is helping us. So right there, that about, I'm trying not to climb. That about there is our angle of attack that we need to maintain altitude out of ground effect. So once we get out of ground effect, you see how huge this angle of attack is. And then once I get to critical angle of attack, I'm going to try to stall us here. I will probably, just because the aircraft are artificially light in game, I can't probably stall us properly. But I am, once I drop this nose down, I bet we'll probably stall a little bit. All right, so now let's do a run over the land. And we'll finish up here in a minute. But so this is the main system that makes this aircraft work. This could get us into an accelerated stall. See how fast we're dropping? That's called your sink rate. If I don't address this early, like right now, we do an accelerated stall. I would not be able to have enough angle of attack to overcome that sink. And so that's how you get an accelerated stall. You essentially get past the angle of attack you can get to, and you're screwed, and you're going to end up in the ground. So you want to start early, and you want to do a small pitch correction to start trying to change your sink rate. A sink rate is essentially the rate at which you are sinking. Pretty simple. It's your vertical speed down. Now, as we get over the land, right, that altimeter is no longer going to cut it for us. All right, so this is what I need to put in the other system. All right. So right now, I don't know if I want to see. I should be able to get in a ground effect on the land. So that's why I was going to use the distance sensor, because the altimeter, right, it thinks we're up at high altitude. We need it to think that I'm close to the ground. So let's quickly add that, and then I will we'll call it there. I'll actually get rid of the wind, too. It'd be a little bit easier to test it. I want kind of static conditions. All right, so let's try to add that information in. So I need the distance sensor as well. All right, so this should be actually reasonably easy here. So what we're going to do is, all right, so if the distance sensor, is less than, let's just do we want to do a little bit higher number. So let's do, what's 60 feet in meters? 20 meters, let's say 20 meters maybe. Let's say if the distance is less than 20 meters, we want to read from the distance sensor and not the altimeter. So that will actually, this should work pretty simply and not be a big pain. So the altimeter is what we want to run on most of the time. If the distance sensor is less than that, we want to run off the distance sensor. Pretty simple. All right, so if the distance sensor is less than 60, so we want to run off the distance sensor. Let's just do 10. The distance sensor is less than 10. We want to run off the distance sensor. No, let's do 20. Sorry. Because what's going to happen is the distance sensor will read, it ignores the water, it reads the floor of the ocean. All right, so let's update this. Let's connect it. I didn't connect it. And let's spawn it. All right, let me go down and read the distance sensor. I want to make sure that we are not, it actually shouldn't matter here, really. Actually, probably does, but let's see. Distance sensor is 9. What is it doing to this? Yeah, that 20 is too high. 20 is too high up. I clicked the wrong thing. This one. Yeah, 20 is too high. Let's go down to, well, I don't know, 8. All right. That I'm going to have a problem when I launch it in the harbor if I do this. So now this is not running off of the distance sensor. This is running off the altimeter, as you can see. So now what this should allow me to do is go over the land. And when the distance sensor is reading 8 or less, it's going to read off of the distance sensor. And so it's not perfect, but it's kind of a quick little dirty way to screw with it. The other thing I should have set up, let me set it up while I'm here. I'm just going to quickly set up a, wait, what's that? Hotkey 1 and 2. Let's go 4 to the gyro. That way I can just have that hold it for me. Let me make sure I don't have any trims in when I get in this. The reason it kind of slides backwards is the fins are already facing upward, and it's kind of sliding back on the fins. All right, we have 0 trims. Let's put this at 20. I'll turn our sound back on here in a second here so we can hear everything. Start up our engine. Let's go ahead and go. We'll go ahead and turn the gyro on. We'll see how that behaves. All right, that's up and running. Let's go to 10%, which is best speed probably. Start going. And I'm going to come over the land, and we'll do a quick little land run, and then we'll finish up the video. So we have the main elements of this craft working very well. This is going to allow me to fly well here. Let's unstick from the water. Very easy now. It's nice and cake to unstick. Good gyro stability here. Flying with the gyro is probably how this thing would fly IRL. We're getting good roll with our canards and our elevons in the tail. And I'm just doing trying not to over yaw here. All right, so we are probably with, as I get higher and higher, I'm losing lift, which will actually help me auto settle and come back down. Now as I come over to land, if I'm within that 8 meters from the ground, it will automatically switch over to the system. Oh, am I touching? No, I'm not touching. Okay, so right now, okay, what is it doing? Shut the gyro off. Yeah, the gyro was acting funky. Perfect. So this now does a beautiful, see my angle attack? See how I have to have a negative pitch angle, essentially nose down, to maintain altitude? That's because the wings are trying to push me up, and I have to change the angle of attack of the wing to decrease that. You actually get this when you add flaps, too. As I put in flaps on an aircraft, as I lower my flaps, my wings want to come up. Well, the only way to counteract that, it's called ballooning. You balloon, it's like, you just hooked a helium balloon up to your wings. You have to pitch your nose down to change the angle of attack of the wing, essentially deleting some of that. Let's see, want to roll. I don't know why it's probably the system kind of jerking my nose down. So it actually acts like a little bit of a cushion. It actually acts like a little bit of a cushion too, so it actually kind of cushions you as you get close to the ground. I don't want it to be that abrupt. But see how it's like saving me? It's almost making it so I can't crash on the ground. I did it there, but it's almost making me so that I can't crash on the ground. But yeah, so this is functioning pretty well. That little bit of jittering's weird to me, but that's something I can definitely fix. So this is working really well. And so now that proof of concept works, this works. I can do things like craft my engine stuff, refine my engine, make my engine bigger, do all the microcontrollers for that. I can start to decorate a little bit, change any aesthetic or design choices that I'm not really thrilled about. But this is working really well, and I'm happy with this. This is a really fine working vehicle at the moment. So we can go from kind of our testing phase. We'll still, of course, be doing a lot of testing, but we can start to go into adding things like the cockpit, getting the gauges hooked up, actually making the engine so that we don't run it on infinite fuel, which means I'm going to have to do a bigger engine, which is fine. I actually want to extend that nacelle to make it look less blocky anyway. And so that will kind of get us into the next episode and start to work that out. So I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.